Good morning, and thank you for coming this morning to the Jessie's Fund presentation in this fantastic York Festival of Ideas. I'm Lesley Schatzberger. I know quite a few of you, and with me here are Abby Vulliamy and Tom Sherman. Particular thanks to Tom, who has come in at short notice because Joe Harrison-Greaves is unwell. Abby's going to talk a little bit about our work in with children in hospital and hospices. Tom focuses more on music in schools for children with complex needs. Both of them have long associations with Jessie's Fund. This year marks the 30th anniversary of Jessie's Fund, remarkably. About a year and a little while before we were established as a charity, we were a normal family of four, my husband and I both musicians. Our two daughters, then aged 11 and 9, were encouraged to play music, both played instruments. But it was Jessica who was the one who took to it like a duck to water, and had dreams of becoming a professional violinist. Just after her 9th birthday, she became dizzy. She thought it was quite amusing. I didn't. After a couple of visits to the GP, she was admitted to the Leeds General Infirmary. This is about 2.5 weeks after her first symptoms. And she was diagnosed with an inoperable tumour in her brain stem. The only treatment available, and it was likely to give only a short period of remission, was an intensive course of radiotherapy. She did have a remission, and during that period, our colleagues and friends in the music world nobly raised funds for us because we'd planned to take her to New York for some complimentary treatment with the blessing of our NHS consultant. But her remission was very short, too short, in fact, for us to get to New York with her. We spent her last few days at Martin House Children's Hospice, not that far away from here, near Wetherby. And it was there that it became apparent to me that many children who have life-limiting illnesses are unable to communicate verbally. And in fact, communication is a real problem for them in any way at all, because a lot of them have got great physical disabilities and difficulties as well. Shortly after Jessie died, in the days after she died in May 1994, I spoke to the head of care, Lenore Hill, about how strongly I felt that music could help these children to communicate and to express themselves. And I asked her whether any of the children's hospices had ever experienced the power of music and music therapy. And the answer was that they hadn't. So Jessie's Fund found its new purpose. The fund which had been raised for Jessie's treatment, and which she named herself when we needed to open a bank account, was now going to be focused on helping children to communicate through music. So for the first decade or so, we concentrated on working with children in hospices. The first part of that was to give information to the senior leaderships of the children's hospices and to persuade them how music could be so crucial and transformative for the children. Then we established posts for music therapists in the children's hospices. We provided musical instruments, appropriate musical instruments. We aren't talking about flutes and cellos. We're talking about easily accessible instruments, some of which you have right in front of you here. And crucially, we also provided training courses. The training courses were for the staff to enable them to use simple music-making techniques to give them another tool in their toolbox for communicating with the children. We were not teaching them music therapy. There's no way you can do that. That is a long training, postgraduate training for people who are already qualified as musicians. So we were not teaching them music therapy, but simple tools that actually every one of you here could learn quickly. And hoping to give them confidence as well to use those. So by 2005, we had established posts for 44 children's hospices, posts for music therapists in 44 children's hospices. And we became aware that, or we had for some time been aware, that the techniques that we were teaching to staff in children's hospices might be really useful in schools for children with additional needs too. So we devised a program where music could be used as a real tool, a facilitator for learning. And that program, in that program, we were using community musicians, specialist professional musicians who were working with the children and with the staff, particularly with the staff, to embed music in the daily life of a school. Whichever project there was, there are tiered levels of project within that program. Every single one includes an element of training. So from a one-day introductory workshop to a weeks-long project to a year-long intervention, training is at the core. In fact, in the year-long interventions, which we call staff development projects, although we're working with the children, the core aim of that project is to leave the school at the end of a year with the staff fully confident and enabled to carry on the work that we do. In 2016, our fantastic patron, Victoria Wood, died. She had come on board in 1999 and was completely in tune, no pun intended, completely in tune with the work that we did. She spoke for us at events, and in fact, I'd like to read to you one of the speeches she did at one of the events. She said, "What you have to remember is that music is a much more subtle and complicated language than any spoken or written language. And if you can give children access to music, no matter what their difficulties in hearing, speech, mobility, and understanding, you're giving them a chance to celebrate their sense, their humanity, their spirituality, their energy, their creativity, and their sense of fun. Now, I know that music can do all that. You can't quantify it, you can't write it down, you can't say how it happens, you just know it happens. And these children's lives may be limited in length, they may be limited in scope, but the benefit that they get from music is unlimited." How right she was. I'm going to hand over to Abby in a moment to talk about the work that she does and maybe do a little bit with us. But just before that, there is a very short animation to show you, which I think shows in a nutshell what our work is. I should say also that we now have two new patrons. We have Trevor Pinnock, conductor and harpsichord player, who's been a supporter of Jessie's Fund since we started. And we also have actress and writer Maxine Peake. There may be a familiar voice for you in this little animation.
Jessie's love of music was just the beginning. Jessie's Fund was created in her memory to help children and young people who have serious illness, disabilities or additional needs to communicate through music. Through music, we can bring moments of joy, solace and connection to children and families facing life's hardest moments. We help individual children across the country to find their voice and discover new ways of interacting with the world. Our music projects in schools have a lasting impact, creating vibrant and engaging musical experiences which allow children to participate and thrive in all aspects of life. From one child's love of music, Jessie's Fund has grown to enrich the lives of thousands of children and families across the UK, bringing joy and a means of expression and connection through music to those who need it most. With your help, Jessie's Fund can continue this remarkable musical journey and reach many more children, young people and families for years to come. Join us today.
Thank you. Hello. I'll just grab my paper. So I'm a music therapist. I graduated in 2003, so I've been doing it a long time, and I will never get bored. I really, really love it. So I'm gonna, the work I'm going to show you later on. I can give you a case study, and it's from some of the work I do at York Hospital in the paediatric psychology department in child health. And I met Lesley first 14 years ago, I think, when I started. I was very pregnant when I had the interview, wasn't I? I was overdue, and I got the job, and then promptly had the baby, and then started one day a week at the Children's Hospice. It was a brand new hospice, Forget-Me-Not Children's Hospice in West Yorkshire. But I'm going to start now with a few listening extracts, just so we can start to think about how music works, how it affects us. So if you don't mind emptying your head a little bit, it's quite difficult these days, isn't it? But if you're willing to close your eyes, that would be great. There's no right or wrong with this. So just let thoughts and feelings, images, memories, anything arise. We're going to have two different little extracts. So this first one starts very quietly. Wants to share any thoughts or images that arose for them then? We could go. I felt a funny mix of melancholy and hope. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, thank you. So the contradictions that you can feel, the two things at once. Yeah, the complexity. Nice. Are there other thoughts? Anybody wants to? Lovely. Yeah. The universe, huge, infinite, lovely. Should we listen to another one, and you can kind of choose to share what you thought about this one, and in contrast to the next one as well. I'll let you know who they were afterwards. enough? Have we got any thoughts to that one? Any?
I was in a Manhattan street.
Oh, lovely. Busy, polluted, elbows out.
It's overwhelming, actually. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Layers of music with the different instruments.
Yeah. So the first one was Verdi Requiem. The second one was a band called Rutabaga. It's called Smells Like Tinned Spinach, after the the Teenage Fan Club song. It smells like, Teen Spirit. Yeah. So I've had such contrasting, when I've used those two clips in the past, I've had such contrasting responses that it's kind of miraculous. So with the Verdi, the first one, somebody said it's the train to Auschwitz. It's devastation, and it's the courage and then somebody else in the same group said it's new green shoots pushing through the snow, the frozen ground, forcing its way up and bringing new life, And with the Rutabaga, the second one, somebody felt it was the dentist's chair. It's absolute agony and fear. And somebody else said it's carnival. It's a party, So we all respond differently to music, don't we? And that's the beauty of it. And then obviously in music therapy, we have to be trying to tune in. That's the basis of everything that we do, is trying to tune into the feelings behind the body language, the words, if there are words, and the most limited movement or the huge movements, the massive feelings. Music carries emotion, doesn't it? It helps us know what we're supposed to be feeling in TV and film and theatre. It helps us empathise with the feelings each character, we can understand other people's perspectives through music. Without the music, we often lose track. It often makes no sense at all, just with the words and the physical, the non-verbal stuff that we can see. If we turn the music off, it sometimes doesn't really affect us at all. So it's a super powerful thing, clearly. It takes us places, it transports us. The musical element of music therapy is obviously completely crucial, and I would say particularly in the hospital and the hospice work that I do, it's essential because it helps us manage huge feelings that are sometimes impossible to really put into words. Sometimes playing music together or listening to music together can help us find words and gain insights and share, and feel more intimate within that. But sometimes we don't even need to translate it into words. We just are processing feelings together within music, and it's really, really powerful. Now, I'm going to ask if is anybody willing to volunteer to have a little musical conversation. Again, there's no right or wrong. It's a very beautiful instrument, if anyone's into wood. So I would love it if I could have a little musical conversation with somebody, or if even there's two people who might like to just go into the unknown, be brave, and have a go on this beautiful instrument. Please. Yeah, lovely, thank you. What's your name?
I'm Jude.
Jude, hi. Is there any other buddy who would like to have a little conversation with Jude, or? Yeah, lovely, thank you. Can you manage? Shall I take? There's absolutely no right or wrong with this. So in conversation, we usually turn take, don't we? So I would say, let's start from silence and just somebody starts. It's non-verbally negotiated. But you can, in music, play at the same time if you want, can't you? So there's no reason why you might not do that. Lovely. Thank you very much. Ladies, do you want to share any thoughts about how that was for you, or any observations from people?
I think I was noticing, like, it felt like I had my side and, sorry, I don't remember.
Yes, sorry. Jane.
My side and Jane's side, and I was kind of undergoing on Jane's side and then thinking, oh, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that it was slightly territorial.
Yeah. Yes. Very much call and response, wasn't it?
I thought it was very chatty. You know, you went boom, 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 and it was the same rhythmic patterns, which sounded really like you were talking. I don't know if that's...
Yeah, I think we were mirroring each other.
Well, yeah, because some of the time I was following what you were doing exactly, but then other times I thought I better break out of this.
Did you feel a little confined at times, like, or?
Well, it took me a while to get into it.
Nobody let rip. Nobody really on the other person's side and, use the body language, encroaching, or, very kind of polite and respectful. Really listening. Yeah. I wonder if I should carry on with a back-to-back one, so we take away... You didn't use your body language so much. Sometimes there's like a real fight and there's proper, everybody's playing at the same time. But we could try that if anybody wants a quick go back-to-back. So we're taking out the eye contact and that respectful space.
Don't you think we're all a bit constrained by there being an audience?
Possibly, yeah.
You two felt that maybe if you'd been on your own,
Yeah.
you would have been perhaps different.
Very much so, and that's what happened in music therapy. Usually the door's closed, it's confidential, and it's very hard to describe really what is going on between us. And if you have an observer in the room or a video in the room, it changes really what can happen. So, well, I'll go straight into my, so as not to use up too much time, I'll go straight into my little clinical case study. I've got permission to share this. Actually, I was going to quickly think about what the aims of music therapy might be, so I'll just quickly do that. If anybody has any thoughts, chip in. But those examples that you just saw, a lot of the aims that I would devise, therapeutic aims, would be around social, emotional and communication skills and developing those. And within that, so you saw the turn-taking, the listening skills, cause and effect for somebody who maybe their sensory input is much more limited. There's visual impairment possibly, the physical difficulties so that they may be only able to move very, very minimally. Then kind of realising that the slightest flutter of a finger can cause the huge response in the wind chimes. If there's any vocalisations, that's what the child carries with them everywhere they go. So it's great if they can play the instruments, but if they can use their voice, I encourage that as much as I can. So any babbling, I reflect back and extend and make into little songs, the whichever consonants they're managing to create with their verbally. There may be some kind of left-sided weakness or some sort of reason why I need to encourage. Music is a great motivator, so to reach for the drum can be part of a physiotherapy exercise, so working within teams and trying to kind of incorporate the exercises that the physiotherapist or the occupational therapist has kind of instructed the parent to do. We can help with that. And just in terms of identity and personhood and self-expression, it's huge. It's so important for so many people who it's harder to listen and wait for somebody who's more limited with what they can say and what they can do. And it's hard to make that happen in general, in the classroom setting or general society. So that's what I'm trying to kind of encourage when I'm in schools, is just actually really listening, really waiting, really thinking and giving space. And all of that goes along hand in hand with self-esteem and confidence. Emotional literacy comes in a lot, particularly with my other work with adopted kids. So emotional vocabulary, because music, as we've said, it makes us feel things. And so we can kind of expand people's emotional vocabulary, and they can start to identify how they're feeling sooner. They can think about the complexity, as you said, Jude, of, I can feel both happy about, finishing school, ending primary school, and also a bit frightened and sad that it's finishing and I'm going on to the next part of my education. And music is a way to express big, massive feelings, but not destructively. It can contain huge feelings because these are big instruments and the piano is huge, if I have access to that. So, I have permission to share these clips. This is somebody I'm calling Edie, but it's obviously normally confidential, so I'm sure you'll respect that. She is a wonderful young person. I've been working with her for 2 years, so we know each other well. She is in mainstream primary, and she began having epileptic seizures age 8, and they were big ones, and they've caused damage to her brain. So Edie went from being a popular member of the class and a confident little person, really good at maths, to suddenly finding it very difficult to encode anything new, to remember what's just happened, what she's just said, what she's just been told, what the instructions are, what the rules of being with your friends are. So it's been a very difficult transition for Edie. It causes huge anxiety and frustration for her, of course. It's, just a huge loss for her. And she puts on a very brave face and she smiles very sweetly and she checks and she covers up and she follows the cues of her friends to try and work out what's happening next. But the classroom setting is a very challenging and demoralising place for her now, despite school's significant efforts to try and adapt and support her, give her lots of one-to-one support, lots of repetition, lots of simplification. But musically, Edie is a whiz kid. She is amazing. So she's got perfect pitch by chance. So she would sing her favourite Taylor Swift, any of the Taylor Swift songs, in the same key that Taylor chose to record them in. I'm so jealous. I can't do that. So, and she can pick out tunes really easily, particularly in the key of C on the white notes on the piano. She loves the piano. And she can do it all by ear. So, and music helps enormously with Edie's memory. She can write new lyrics and new pieces of music one week, and then the next week I can play the first 2 notes and she's nearly always able to just remember the words and the melody straight away. It's unbelievable. So the basic explanation for this is about how, because music lights up so many different parts of our brain, shown in the kind of EEG, attaching electrodes to the brain, you can see how music lights up the emotional connections, it lights up the language part of our brain, it lights up the kind of visual and spatial part, it lights up so many parts that you can kind of slightly bypass some of the bits that are perhaps not working the way they should. So I'm going to start with one little clip, which was actually recorded very recently, with Edie singing her little song. So this one's called Days of the Week. It's for her to remember what happens each day.
Days of the week, days of the week, days of the week. These days today when I have a week, and I feel very happy. Birthdays today when I have a study, and I feel very happy.
So we have 2 pianos set up opposite each other, and it feels quite mature, She's not interested in the little percussion bits that we have. So that's jumping ahead a little bit. So at the early phase of our work together, she needed to just go round and round 3 songs that she'd memorised, that she knew, and she could do that and feel so proud of herself and get lots of positive feedback, and she knew exactly what was supposed to happen. She would never forget the lyrics, and that felt safe to her. So we went round and round and round, and she would sometimes realise and say, have I already played Twinkle Twinkle? I'd say, oh, let's go for it, because she needed to just feel positive, because the rest of her life in the classroom setting was just so difficult for her. So in music, she felt confident, powerful, like she could succeed, like she knew what was expected of her, and she could absolutely remember all the lyrics, because the harmonic elements move us forwards in music to the next bit, and the melodic elements helped her know exactly what the lyrics were. Really good for her self-esteem and confidence. And she we gradually extended the repertoire. So she would teach me some of the action songs from her choir that she visits, that she attends every week. She's got a gorgeous voice. We typed up and laminated. She decorated lots of these songs so that she could, because it was hard for her to remember what songs she loved sometimes when she was anxious. So she needed a little prompt sometimes, and that would. Then she wore them in a lanyard round her neck, and she could just start to sing them to herself or to her TA or to a member of staff nearby, and that would help reduce her anxiety when she was becoming stressed. So that's about trying to translate the joys or the positives and the progress in the therapy into the rest of her daily routines. Down by the Bay was one of her favourites. Do you know that one? Down by the bay where the watermelons grow, back to my home I dare not go, and if I do, my mother would say. So it's time for a rhyme. Did you ever have a time when you couldn't make a rhyme? Or did you ever see a fox with stripy socks? So the musical element again, and the rhythm and the pace of it helped Edie access some kind of rhyming and timing that would have been very difficult for her to access without the music. When we started to kind of begin to go into the unknown, and it was difficult for Edie at first, it felt safer to stick with the much more kind of, the familiar tunes that felt safe. But the first song Edie wrote was called Music in My Mind, and now I only have to play the first couple of notes, and she can recall all the words and all the melody and play it on the piano.
My memory is a good thing, sometimes very sad, but music in my mind, it helps me to remember. I don't want to be naughty, I just want to be good, but it's hard sometimes, and I do my best. I don't want to be grumpy, I just want to be kind, but it's hard sometimes, and I do my best.
So I love that music is the solution. It helps her to remember. But I think that she's exploring the idea that she's confused by her feelings. She doesn't want to, she wants to fit in desperately. And she's never naughty. If she ever kind of shows frustration, she checks, oh, I'm sorry, was I rude? She's very, very polite, but she's confused by her feelings. And what I found was that she struggled when she would forget what she was trying to say and then get frustrated with herself. And so I started to reflect back some of the feelings that she was showing. So if she kind of got stuck with what she was trying to say, she'd go, big sigh, and I might reflect that on the piano with a musical gesture across the piano keys with all my arm. Or a big glissando down, which she found funny, and that was a way of enabling her, saying it's okay to feel upset, cross, sad, whatever it is you're feeling, it's absolutely fine. This is the place to bring it. We can explore it here. And she found it funny, and it made it something creative and playful and humorous instead of something she felt ashamed of or guilty about, or like she had to apologise, which was really important. So the next one is called Trying to Think, and this is her trying to gain focus and get clarity and find the word she's looking for, and then getting a bit cross with it. So if maybe we could go to 15 seconds.
Trying to remember, trying to think, trying to think, trying to remember, to
So I have a couple more extracts, but I don't want to run in. I'm not sure exactly what time I was supposed to finish. We should move on, yeah. So shall I just play her final piece, which is Music is My Superpower, because it gives... I love the title she gave this, the Black Notes Have the Answers, which is great. It's an instrumental, and it's like, yeah, you don't need to put it into words. But music is my superpower, and she is a marvellous young woman to work with.
Music is my superpower, I can play piano. Music is my superpower, I can play piano. Music is my superpower.
That's Edie.
My name's Tom Sherman. I'm a freelance musician, and I've been working with Jessie's Fund for more than 10 years now, I think. So at music college, I studied jazz. So I actually have a degree in jazz, which qualifies me for just about pretty much nothing, actually. But a big part of the course was studying improvisation. And I think at the time, I probably imagined the skills I was learning in improvisation would most likely be used in a jazz club at 2 o'clock in the morning. What I didn't realise was that they would be most relevant and most rigorously tested in an SEND classroom at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. When I'm coming into school to do music, I'm not performing music, I'm not teaching music, I'm not delivering music therapy, I'm not running a music workshop. Although I may be borrowing elements of all of these, the approach is different. I like to think of it as being the architect of a shared musical experience, but one who's not entirely sure what they're about to build. So that's where the improvisation comes in. And of course, it's a collaborative process. So in this analogy, I'm not the only architect in the room. The young people I'm working with will have their own musical ideas, expressions, and opinions, which will be heard and incorporated. So it's important to say that it's live music which we're bringing in. And it's live music which allows for this two-way communication. Using recorded music has its own great benefits, but it's when someone's making music in the room, present, doing it in the moment, where you get this communication, which is really important for what we're doing. So when I'm working with young people doing music, I'm aiming for them to experience being steeped in music. Being steeped in music that reacts and responds to them, yet exerts no pressure or expectation. And we've got a couple of clips from a project recently in a school in the northeast, which maybe we can have a look at now. So it's important to say as well, although I may not know entirely what's going to unfold in a music session, the intention is always clear, to make music in an open and inclusive way with a focus on communication, expression, and engagement. Music offers us many opportunities for non-verbal communication, as well as being a form of communication in and of itself. I don't need to use any words to say how I'm feeling if I can play a chord sequence on the guitar. What's more, by playing this round and round, by repeating it in a certain way where I'm aware and being very considered of how things are unfolding and the pacing of what I'm doing, I can ensure the young people I'm working with have the time and space to process, react, and interact with what's going on. Now, a key part of Jessie's Fund schools projects, as Lesley mentioned earlier, is staff training. This is where we work with teachers and TAs to develop their confidence and skills in doing music in the classroom. So it's not just necessarily teaching music. In fact, it hardly ever is that. It's much more to do with using music as a tool for communication, for achieving students' learning goals, and also using it as a context for students to socialise peer-to-peer as well. Students who don't have any language, to kind of build relationships and friendships peer-to-peer. There are huge challenges there, and music can often offer a framework, a context in which peer-to-peer relationships can be built as well as relationships with a therapist or teacher. So these staff training elements are done in situ. So we're with the staff member in their context, so in their classroom with the students, with the young people. And we use a coaching model which is tailored to each member of staff. Sometimes we may be leading a music activity to demonstrate something. Often we're co-leading with them, and we're aiming to gradually increase their confidence and gradually hand over the role of leading the music session to them. So really we want to demonstrate you don't need to be a highly skilled musician to deliver an effective music session if you can incorporate some key things: non-verbal communication, intensive interaction, singing, and this idea of the unfolding of what you're doing, the pacing of it, so that you're ensuring, again, that time and space for the young people you're working with to process, react, and interact with what you're doing. There's a video which quite nicely illustrates some of the staff training elements, so if you wouldn't mind putting that on.
Jessie's Fund supports children in special schools through creative music making projects in their classrooms. They work with students and staff in schools across the country.
What support gave us was the confidence to use music. We use singing all through the day to either unlock, to develop language, or extend language ability if it's already there. In a way, you could almost say that the music is literally generating their voice. You have these children that come to you and they are locked in, who don't have the power of communication. And that must be so frustrating for a child when Words just aren't there, and you see that in their behaviour. Music is the communication tool. They've got an avenue. They can tell you what they need.
When we're using music, it's like a kind of brain gym. You're accessing their whole brain, and it just gives you that way in to support them. What we do is sow the seed.
When Jessie Fund came in, it was like a new life. It was great. They came in with enthusiasm, they boosted my confidence, they said it's okay to make mistakes. There is so much in one music lesson. You could have rhythm, you can have gross motor, you can have fine motor, you can have maths, you can have English, you can have all sorts of speech and language therapy, physiotherapy, getting them around, marching to the beat. It benefits them as a whole pupil, as a whole class and as a whole school.
Great, thanks. And we like that one because one of the teachers cries in the video. So that's good. But it's also illustrating that there are those big emotions that Abby was alluding to there. Not only for the young people, but also for the staff who are working with them. And it also covers kind of a couple of points, which is, I think, one of the members of staff there was talking about music as a communication tool. And so it's with some staff members, more so the teachers, it's almost that permission to go, you know what, you can do music just for the sake of music. You don't have to be ticking all these boxes, quite anxious about a plan and all the different parts of the curriculum they're hitting. It's that permission to be, to do things at a different pace. Because that's something that quite often happens when teachers first start doing music sessions as well. We'll do a music activity and they'll go through it, bish, bash, bosh, and it's been 5 minutes. And one of the key pieces of feedback we often say is, just do that. You could have done that 10 times as long. I'll do that for an hour. What you've just done for 5 minutes. And it's given that permission to do things in a different way. But then once that's kind of established, you can see, I think, the second member of staff in that video starts to come back around and say, hang on, we've been doing that for an hour, but look at all these different things that have been happening. She's saying, look at all this that's been covered in music, gross motor, etc., etc. She was listing all those things. So it's kind of a step back, a change of perspective, and then kind of reapproaching it in a different way. And for teachers, it's quite often that sense of being a bit different in the room. So they're so used to being, I'm the teacher, and now this is it. This is me teaching the class. This is how I stand. This is how I talk. This is the tempo and the pace of how and it's kind of, right now you're stepping into a slightly different pair of shoes where you're doing music. And just the way you are, the way you're being in the room, the way you're presenting, the way you're moving is different. And that can engender different responses from the young people. And that's another key piece of feedback that often we get. Oh, Johnny is completely different in music. He's never like that in geography. And I think, well, maybe that's because the people around Johnny are being so different to how they usually are. And a key bit of that in the music sessions is the non-verbal communication, cutting out the chatter and the unnecessary disturbances, the unnecessary sort of noise pollution in the room, so you can really focus on the music. And that's that's one of those key things that we can hopefully get to with teachers. So Lesley mentioned, we're not teaching music therapy to teachers. That's something, it's completely different. Not completely different, but as you said, it's a really big expert kind of training program. But as well as little musical tricks, practical things, it's also little changes in perspective, little shifts of how you're looking at something, which can unlock areas. Because a lot of these teachers are experts in communication. They're experts in things like intensive interaction and working with the young people. We just kind of shift them into a slightly different context. Do what you're doing already, but do it musically, do it in a musical way. So, I'm aware of the time. That's about all I've got to say. Lesley, are you...
Well, thank you both very much. We were going to have some question and answers. I think we've got 30 seconds. If anybody has a burning question, otherwise we'll wrap up. I'd really like to thank both Abby and Tom today, and Rebecca Ellis, our Executive Director, and the York Festival Ideas, and you for coming to join us. Thank you.